tall, gangly thing?
Hello and welcome. Today I'm joined by the world's favorite North American. It's Rereplay coming hot off of his win at the TFT World Championship for set 8, 8.5 Monsters Attack. Rereplay, how you doing?
Good. Very well, actually.
All right, we have quite a few things to talk about. But before we get to the World Championship, which I think is what everyone really wants to hear about, first let's just back up and give a little bit of context about who you are. Why don't you just talk about yourself for a minute or two?
Yeah, I guess like backstory, I talked about this a little bit before, like other podcasts and whatnot, is like I started playing TFT in set 1, played a bit set 1, played a bit of set 3 when I was like working. I played regionals then, didn't get much further. And I started like taking work more seriously, and I didn't play TFT through set 4 to 7. And then set 8 came along, I started playing, and I thought it was very fun. So I mean, I was kind of tired of working, so I quit working and started just playing TFT all like 24/7.
It almost feels a little bit like this story of have you ever seen the Hunger Games? Where it's like they have the careers, right? Where it's like the people who are supposed to kind of like win the games, and then the protagonist is just like this random girl who comes in and wins. And in a way, it actually kind of feels like that's your story, where it's, you know, everyone from North America expected to win at some point in time. But I don't think that people expected it to be someone who wasn't playing every set. I'm curious to know, like, how do I even say this? Do you think that it gave you an advantage or disadvantage, or did it not matter at all that you just didn't play TFT for so long?
I mean, it's definitely a disadvantage not playing for so long, because like I feel like the first half of the set I was like really bad at the game, at least like relative to everyone else. And there's just a catch up period where like everyone else has been playing for a few years. I've been not playing any TFT at all, so like it's definitely a disadvantage. Though the sets do change so much every single year, or like every set change, that it's like not as big as a disadvantage as pretty much every other game.
On like a macro level, I think if you were to compare sets 1 to 3, it would probably be very, very different, right? Like set 3 is kind of when people started, pre-leveling and leveling much more frequently and increasing the tempo of lobbies, things like that. Did you feel like coming into set 8, having not played since set 3, were there any big picture things that you feel like you had to just learn quickly?
I mean, like I feel like what I need to learn quickly was like just like the real basics, like understanding like even what items did, like understanding what units do, and like seeing like how much the game has changed since then. Because like back then, like late game positioning wasn't really that big of a thing. It was just like, I don't know, like you put your carries in the back and you put your front in the front, and then you're probably a top tier player. But like nowadays, there's like so many small changes you can make that are like really big like differences.
Now, apart from TFT, I know that you told me you had played Hearthstone a little bit, but it wasn't really competitive. Was that the only game you've ever really played at a high level or competitively?
I never really like played a game competitively. I was like very good, like top 10 in like Hearthstone, like in high school back when I played it, and like Battlegrounds also, Hearthstone Battlegrounds. I was like top 10. Like I was never like seriously playing the game, I guess, or like a serious competitor.
I heard you just casually throw out in one of the other times I've heard you speak that you played Hearthstone while you were in class, right? Yeah. Is that what it was? Like, so you are just in high school casually top 10 in Hearthstone while playing what, like on your phone?
Yeah. I mean, both Hearthstone and Battlegrounds, I played mainly on my phone because I don't know, like the phone UI is not even that bad. It's pretty good, honestly.
All right, let's talk about Worlds. I think people are really excited to hear that sort of the story. So let's just talk. I guess we can start wide and narrow in. So talk for a minute about just your perspective. Tell me a little bit about this weekend, how things went for you, what you were thinking.
Yeah, I thought like going into Worlds, I felt like pretty prepared. I think going to the Worlds was like the first time. So one of my problems playing in the previous tournaments was like my nerves. And I think like something that added to the nerves was like I wasn't used to like playing in front of people. Like at all. So like for example, in Mecha Cup, last game in Mecha Cup, I had a 2-point lead. I was playing like Sivir Reroll, and on 3-2, I couldn't hit a single Sivir. I was rolling like 30 plus gold. And instead of like thinking about the game or like doing things like that, I was like panicking. I was like, yo, what do people think like about this? Like I'm in such a bad spot. Like I don't know. I was like not really focused on the game. I was like kind of focused about like other things, like nervous about like I don't know outside things. I feel like I started streaming a lot more often going into Worlds, and that kind of helps me with. I think it helped me with like not really caring. I don't know, like I was like I'm kind of a dumb person on stream. Now I can play dumb also in Worlds, and it's all good. I think.
It did surprise me just listening to your stream how much you were talking just while you're playing at the World Championship. I think it's like common to kind of see people just mute themselves, just full focus. So do you feel like actually being able to talk through game plan, or I mean, it wasn't that you were really talking through game plan, it was almost more like you were adding color commentary to the games while you were playing?
Yeah, I've seen some clips of what I've said. Yeah, let's just say high stress environment. High stress environment. Yeah.
It's fascinating to see how the actual atmosphere or the context in which you're playing really does affect people, and we'll talk about this later on in this interview about how obviously moving towards LAN in the future, I think, is probably fair to say that it's going to have even larger shifts in how players react to it. So let's talk about preparation for the event. You said you felt prepared. Can you talk a little bit? I mean, at this point, who cares if you spill all the beans? Like, what was your game plan going into Worlds?
Yeah, I mean, my game plan wasn't like too different from what my game plan was in regionals. I was like basically sword starting into AD flex most games. I know like I ended up playing quite a few Lulu games just because I had like a high roll opener before. I played like quite a few like TF sorcerer games, spellslinger games actually. I mean, basically I was like open to play everything, but like my default was AD flex if possible.
Was there any hidden tech that you didn't get to whip out?
I didn't really have any hidden tech. Like I thought, like the only thing that I've been saying for a long time that I don't know if people believe me is like stacks on stacks and assets reroll is like really strong. I think it's like a top tier comp. Right? Like you kind of need the spot and the hero augment for it. So it's like it's pretty specific.
There obviously you played a lot of games throughout the weekend. Are there any moments in particular that even now stand out to you or feel particularly memorable?
I mean, like obviously, I think the last game was like the most memorable one, of course, because like the way checkmate format works is like, dude, the last game is way more important than every other game. Like it felt really weird how I thought I had a really good week, like a really good like weekend, but I was like very close to going second off of like one fight. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and it's fascinating even looking at the lead you built up over the weekend. It wasn't like you won having just snuck into the final lobby. Like you were second place behind Setsuko, right? And at multiple times throughout the weekend, I think you and Setsuko were kind of trading first and second. I mean, people were making the jokes like, oh man, NA regionals was harder than Worlds. Can you talk about what happened that allowed you to be so successful? Like how much of that do you think was just like you're hitting what you need to be able to play comfortable versus like you being able to find lines that you think maybe other people wouldn't have found?
I just thought like going into the tournament, I had like probably the best understanding of like Jhin Flex and Infinity Flex, like knowing all like the different outs you can play with that. So I think like the thing is like if you can play flexibly, like a lot of times it looks like you're high rolling, but in reality it's like you're just willing to play everything, and no matter what you hit, it looks like a high roll. Like if you're playing inflexibly, it's only a high roll if you hit a few specific things, I guess. If that makes sense.
I'm curious to know if you feel this way, but in competitive games in general, people tend to have like things they're known for, right? Like there are certain plays that people attribute to certain players. With you, I felt this when I was watching one of the games where it was like I saw a level 8 board that was some sort of Infiniteam board with a Rammus in the front line, right? And I saw this moment and I was like, oh man, like Rereplay, he knows how to play this. Like this is the Rereplay. He's playing some sort of Rammus because he's always playing around that unit in the mid game. He's playing Infiniteam, which we've seen him play 100 times. Do you ever think about that? I guess like doing things in tournament that people kind of attribute to then your brand.
Yeah, I mean, if something like that is there, I think it's Guard Breaker. Because like for like three games of streams beforehand, I would start at Glove, and Glove is a really bad starting component for everything except Guard Breaker. I think Guard Breaker is like super top tier. So yeah, like I started building so many Guard Breakers, and then I don't know, like people started making fun of me as if like I don't know, there's other items in the games, but like honestly, like I don't know, what can I do? I gotta build the best items.
What was it? I saw your stream titles were ascending every day, right? It was like double Guard Breaker, triple Guard Breaker.
Yeah.
So let's talk about final day, final game. Literally the final fight, actually, right? Is heads up, you and Flancy. NA versus China is your opportunity to dethrone China and get North America the first world championship we've ever had. Can you talk me through a little bit, like what's going through your mind at that point in time?
Yeah, like it was kind of weird because like I think like so I don't remember who was third, but like it was like someone with like last stand and had a very strong board.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Like I was like basically like I was actually more concerned about the person that was going third or that actually ended up going third because I thought they had like, a really strong board. So once he died out, it was a 1v1. I was like kind of getting overconfident almost to a point where I was like, this guy's board does not actually look that good. I'm pretty sure I've won, but like I need to like kind of reel it in a little bit. Be like, I need to focus. Like, I need to make sure I don't like make any like major positioning mistakes or like I don't know, throw the game somehow. But yeah, I was like feeling a little too overconfident. I think on the last like fight.
When we were on Hyrule Radio, I talked to you, GQ, and Wajan about the idea of like representing NA and like regional pride. And a common thread from pretty much everyone except GQ was like, well, yeah, you know, I'm from NA, but like this is a game for me. Like I'm playing this to see how well I can do. Now that you've won the world championship and you are actually the man who's brought a championship to NA, do you feel that weight of representing an entire region?
Yeah, definitely a little bit. I think what really helped with that though is like going into the tournament and also like even after every single day, like we kind of like VOD together, like me and the other NA players, and I feel like that kind of like gives more regional pride, like because when that first podcast was like never really talked to like Juke, Wajan, or like Tetsuko before, so it's just like I don't know, we're all just playing from the same region and whatnot. But then like over time, like I feel like once like I met them a little bit more, like it was like okay, now there is some sort of like regional pride here.
Love that. I really love hearing that. I know Makes kept asking you on the broadcast what you're going to do after you won, and you didn't really have a good answer. So I am curious, what did you do after you won the world championship?
I mean, like I didn't really do too much. I just like so I already had a plan with like getting like lunch with some friends. I don't know, just like win lose. Like I'm probably going to trick myself into either depression or celebration. So.
Do these people play TFT, or was it just like you kind of showed up to lunch? You're like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm a world champion.
Okay, I mean they're my friends, so like they knew I was playing and whatnot. But yeah, they're not like big TFT players or anything.
Okay, all right. So Worlds is over. You're the world champion, and at this point in time, you've kind of accomplished most of what there is to accomplish. You haven't won a North American tournament, I guess, right? That's kind of still on the list, but like all things considered, you're the world champion. What is next? I mean, are you planning on continuing to compete? Are you hanging up the keyboard now that you've kind of now that you're on top?
Yeah, I remember I don't remember who brought this up. Someone was like, it'd be pretty cool if you played one set, won Worlds, and then just quit TFT. I don't think I'm planning to do that, but yeah, I mean, my plan is basically like as expected, like play to win set 9 Worlds.
Really? Okay. So do you feel like there's no loss in drive like now that you've won?
Oh, I feel like if anything, there's probably more of a drive because like going into this season, I didn't really have like. So I going into the season, my goal was to win Worlds. Like I said it like before I even started playing like before I quit my job, like before everything, like my goal was first and foremost to win Worlds. I knew the game is super high variance and like you can't really just go in expecting to win Worlds, like even if you're the best player. And I clearly was not when I said that. But I feel like I don't know, like seeing that you can actually win Worlds makes your drive for winning the next one even higher, I guess, because now it's even more possible.
You strike me as someone who's like confident of what they're able to do. And not in a bad way, like in a good way, but like you said yourself, like you told yourself you were going to win Worlds before you were even good enough to really be considered a world caliber threat, right? Do you think, does that stem from something? I mean, are you the kind of person that you just feel like you're able to accomplish what you put your mind to?
Oh, but I think it's like about particular things. Like I feel like before I was like, I played TFT in set 3. I was like top 10 for most of the set while working. And like, it felt like it was quite doable to become the best in this game because I was able to be pretty top tier while really only playing the game after work. So I felt like if I 2x 3x my efforts, like I should be able to be 2x 3x better. Kind of thing. So like my confidence comes from like I don't know like some like background knowledge, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. There are very few people who I think have taken a break that long and then have been able to actually find success once again. I think it's really cool that you are now like this spokesperson to show that like, yeah, TFT is a game of variance. And on top of that, like if anyone really puts the time and effort, they can learn a lot about this game very quickly because of the nature of like the rotating sets.
Yeah, small thing to add though. I think 99.999% of the population should probably not quit their job to play TFT. They're probably not good enough. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. All right. Well, we could talk about Worlds infinitely, but there's other news that did happen, actually just was announced today, and I really want to get your reaction to it, which is that Riot Games announced that in Set 10, the start of it, December 8th through 10th, they're going to be hosting a global TFT LAN event in Las Vegas. So this is going to be a 512 open bracket event where they're going to be, it seems like they're going to be inviting people, but then people can also sign up freely. So I'm curious to just get your initial impression of this announcement.
Unbelievably excited. Unbelievably excited. I think I picked the best time to play TFT. Like I didn't play when I think Riot was like not committing as much resources or time into it. But now it looks like, I don't know, like they're very willing to spend more resources into the game. And it's a good time. It's a good time to be playing TFT.
Have you ever been to a tournament of any kind on LAN?
Like I went to like the Big House in Michigan, like a
no way
tournament. Yeah.
Wait, you played Melee?
Like, really. No, I did not play Melee actually. My friends played Melee, and I was like, I mean, I'm close by. Like, I'll come through.
No way. Which Big House was that? Do you remember?
No, long time ago.
Like, are we talking like 10 years ago? Because it's very possible that you and I were at the same event, not knowing each other. Because I've been to a handful of different Big Houses.
Yeah, definitely not 10 years ago. I'm not that old. But
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we can sidebar that. That's another conversation. But yeah, I mean, one of the things, and I feel like at this point in the interview, like it's a little bit more appropriate to just be more candid about it because this is brand new news to me too. I don't really have any more info than what's publicly out there, but I think it's pretty insane that Riot is committing to not only doing LAN events but also doing the open bracket style, where it's not just the top of ladder like we have for all of the actual Riot sponsored events, right? The Mecha Cup and things that lead to regionals. And one thing I've always talked about is trying to find ways for Riot to capture the casual audience, because TFT has a giant player base, but the competitive scene is not that big. Well, I'm curious to know your thoughts, because I feel like this is a great opportunity to try and capture those casual fans by making it more accessible.
Oh, I definitely agree. I don't know if like this was like alluded to, but it seems like very likely there's like spectator like passes or something. I kind of, I don't know. I'm guessing, honestly.
No, I felt the same way.
Well, like if it was like kind of like how the Big House is set up, where like there's players, but there's also just people that come and like watch people play. I don't know, like there's other like activities and whatnot to do. Like that sounds very exciting. Like that's exactly for like the casual viewers that like, I don't know, play TFT on their phones like after work kind of thing. But like now they can get more involved into like what I've seen.
Yeah, and even like, people talk about the jokes of, Soju's viewership is better than the main broadcast, right? Like that kind of thing. There are people who will only watch certain personalities in the scene. And it does make me wonder, well, like, are we able to now leverage the personalities going to the event? Like, how many people want to come out because they want to meet the North American world champion, right? Like, are we going to have replay activations on site where people can do meet and greet and take pictures with you and get autographs and stuff like that, which also I'm sure is like probably a pretty weird thing to think about on your end, that like all of a sudden you're like a star now, right?
Yeah, I kind of doubt people want to do that, but
have you actually felt it? Have you felt like I'm sure you've gotten more Twitter followers and Twitch followers, like what has that growth been like in the last 3 days?
Yeah. Like after winning, I created a Twitter because Fredden was like, he was like, you need to like, I don't know, like do something. Like you need to create, like you need to make a post or something. And I was like, I don't really have a Twitter. How am I going to create a Twitter post? but yeah, like I created a Twitter and like I don't know, like I create a Discord, like I'm trying to like do like the I don't know, like the normal stuff that everyone has kind of thing, like I don't know, be a little bit in social media, I guess. But it's interesting. It's interesting.
It really does feel like on some level you went from this like 0 to hero almost overnight, right? Like you went from being an unknown player to 99% of North America at the mid-set finale to all of a sudden being like a favorite at the event and then the person who actually won. I mean, like, talk a little bit about like the transformation of, 6 months ago you were working as a software engineer, right? And now you're a world champion of a game that you weren't even playing 6 months ago. Like, how does that feel?
Yeah, I'm not sure yet. Like I think okay, so quick tangent though is so my parents they have like a family friend or whatnot, like has a kid, and like the kid was like talking about, do you guys know that like TFT has a new world champion? It's a North American person. His name's Rereplay, and my parents were like, "Oh, that's our son, by the way."
That's
and I was
insane.
like, "That's crazy." Like that, yeah. I think that kind of like hit like my parents. Like I probably thought the whole time like I kind of just quit my job to play some games. But like I feel like that moment probably was like kind of big for them to understand. It's like a little bit more than games.
Right. I mean, yeah, I think there's a lot of people who kind of have this moment with like the older generation or the generation above ours where they kind of get to show like, oh yeah, this is what gaming's really like. But the way you got to do it was actually insane where you're like, oh no, mom, dad, like I'm actually just like a world champion of this game now. I can't even imagine what that felt like for you. So what was their actual reaction when you told them like, hey, or were they watching?
Yeah, they were watching, but like they don't really understand like how the game works or anything like that. Like my dad was like, so you won in like 3 rounds? I still don't even know what a round is. Like I don't know what that means, 3 rounds, but like sure. Like they were watching, they were really supportive, but at the same time they were very lost. But like that's just how it is.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I didn't mean to break off from like the whole set 10 LAN event because I do want to circle back to that before we wrap up because there's another thing that I think is pretty interesting. And you alluded to it earlier where it is like this idea of spectators being in the event is something that I think will be brand new for quite literally everyone in TFT, I guess, apart from anyone who competed in Twitch Rivals in set 1. Do you feel like competing with spectators cheering and booing and heckling or whatever it is, like what does that experience feel like to you? Are you concerned at all?
I've not really thought about that at all. I feel like it shouldn't make like much of like any difference at all. I don't know. I thought for most games, like you'd have like noise canceling headphones and whatnot, so like you can barely hear the audience. Because like if they're just yelling in your ears, obviously like you can't even think straight. But I feel like if it's like a backline mutter of boos, like it's probably not a big deal. It might be a little funny if anything.
One of the interesting things that Riot Sherman talked about in the Don't Talk If You Don't Know podcast was that it's going to start off as, because it's fully open, and maybe it changes for you because you're a world champion. Maybe you get seeded into like the final round or something. But if it is completely open, he was saying that like it's going to be 8 computers all next to each other. So it really, on some level, will be like people are coming to the event and they're playing with you as a fan of you. I think that's a pretty cool thing to think of, that like there is value in entering this event, not because you feel like you have a chance of winning, but because now someone can say to themselves like, I just played with the set 8 world champion, or I got to play with K3 Soju, or I got to play with my favorite YouTuber or streamer. And I think that's a really interesting and new adventure for like TFT, because fandom has never really been explored in this game because it's mainly just been online, and we have like Twitch chat and stuff. But I'm curious to know like if you feel, I guess, any sort of strong feelings about, being able to see fans or meet other people in the community, or even like meeting friends for the first time that you've talked to online but have never seen in person.
Yeah. I actually think that's like a huge deal, because I know for like the Big House, I think it was a very similar, where there was like professional players that were playing against like, I don't know, like average Joes like me and my friends. Like I wasn't too big into the scene, but like a lot of my friends were like going for a large part in reason because like there's professional players that like they could play, I don't know, maybe even play against if they win a few rounds, like maybe not most of the time. So I think it's a big deal. I think the other thing that you touched about that I think is really cool is like you get to actually see the people that you've been playing TFT with for a long time. I feel like I've made a lot of friends like over the last season, but I've never actually like seen them in person. And like this is now like a very good excuse, I guess, to all meet up at one place.
All right, I think that we've gone long enough. We can wrap it up here. But before we go, is there anything you want to shout out?
Not really too much.
All right. Well, thank you again. Oh yeah, you got something? Go for it.
Quick shout out to my stream. Can I shout out my stream?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Do your thing.
Twitch.tv Rereplay TFT. I'm trying to stream full time. Oh, Twitter is also Rereplay TFT. I'm trying to stream full time, so I don't have to go back to working. Thank you for your support.
That's right. He can't live off those winnings forever. Eventually, that well will run dry. So everyone go support Replay. Let's make sure that all of our North American talent feels supported and secure. But Replay, thanks again for joining me. This has been a ton of fun. And Set 9, right? Yeah, Set 9 PvE comes out tomorrow as of recording this interview. I think it'll probably be today as of releasing it. So I hope everybody enjoys that. I did get to do the preview event. There are some VODs on my channel by the time this comes out where you can see some footage of me playing TFT Set 9. You probably don't want to watch it, but if you just want to see the content, you'll get a little bit of enjoyment out of there. So again, Replay, thank you so much for joining me. For everyone else, please subscribe, like, comment, do the whole YouTube thing, and be sure to look out because there's plenty of content in the woodwork. I'll catch you guys later.